Welcome everyone to my latest Bandai to Machinations SH Figuarts review, as I have Aquaman from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So the sequel movie that was released last December 2023. Unfortunately, it was the final DCEU movie, which ended the 10-year span of the universe ever since Man of Steel came out in 2013. And surprisingly, this is the first Arthur Curry Aquaman figure we have in the SHF line, since they did cancel the Justice League version many years ago. And despite his first appearance way back in 2016 in Batman v Superman, we just never got a figure of Aquaman. So this is the first, and even though it is the final DCEU movie, it's not the last DC figure we're going to get for the SHF, since The Flash is coming out next month as well. So looking at this packaging, the box is actually a lot bigger than the usual figures. This is probably the largest box for a DC figure. It's probably just due to the accessories. And the colors, of course, you kind of expect this. It does match the theme of the Aquaman costume. And once again, they've used a real photo shot of the character at the front, as they do with all their DC figures. And of course, we have the usual logos and stickers at the front, looking really nice. And then on the side, we have a shot of Aquaman, the Figuarts with the title. And this other side, it wraps all the way around, which we have the full logo. And then of course on the back, we have the figure in different poses. There's not much at the bottom, it's kind of your usual standard kind of look. Just before we begin with the review, I also picked up the Medicom Mafex Aquaman from Zack Snyder's Justice League line, and this is another figure I was looking forward to for a long time. So stay tuned to my channel, as I will look to do the review as well. So inside we have this really nice background which shows the trident inside the sea. And of course we have the usual instruction manual to show you how to put on the accessories. And here is the full set of the Aquaman figure inside this packaging. So here is a first look at the Aquaman figure from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, our very first SH Figuarts in the collection. So finally we have Arthur Curry to add into the DC lineup. And this is primarily the suit he wears in the sequel, of course very much inspired from the comics, with most of it being orange and green. Now I'm not sure if this is the exact same suit he wears in the final battle of the first film, but I'm kind of glad they stuck to kind of the main colors of it, because I know in a lot of the movies they do like to change up the suits. And he did have a brief moment where he wore the blue one, which I wasn't really a fan of. So I'm kind of glad that most of the time he did wear this one. And based on what I'm seeing, it's very similar to the first one. And I will bring in the Mafex version later on just to compare, because they did release one for the first movie. But looking at it, I do actually like it in terms of my first impressions. Of course, they have seriously improved on the proportions of these DC figures. I think before they were kind of smaller than I wanted it to be, but I think they've got the proportions right in the recent years, especially the Black Adam figure that we got recently. I think The Rock obviously had to be very tall, very bulky, and it's the same for Jason Momoa. He's got to be pretty much muscular, and that's exactly what they've done for this figure. And it will be interesting to do the comparisons as well. But looking at it, I really like the shine of it, because that's what we see in the film, especially his main bodysuit, and then of course the green armors for the legs as well. You can see they really pop, and just overall I do like the look of this. And obviously the head sculpt is one of the most important things, and I think they do pretty much nail the look of it. A pretty standard look, a neutral look, but I do like the way they've sculpted it. So it very much feels like an SH Figuarts figure, if that makes any sense, because it is pretty solid and heavy, which I do like. And just based on what I'm seeing, I probably prefer it over the Mafex one. Obviously this one was released a few years ago, but as you can see the colors are slightly different, so I assume that the suit is meant to be slightly different as well. Looking at the legs, you can see the boots are obviously designed differently. So I guess they did make some changes. So this one is a lot more orange, whereas this one feels more like a gold tint to it. So it'll be interesting to see if Medicom will make one for the sequel, as this suit is kind of similar, so maybe they won't do one. But that was just kind of like a quick comparison with it. So first impressions, obviously Aquaman needs to be in some dynamic poses with the trident to make it a bit more exciting. but in terms of like the first look with all the details and especially the proportions, I actually do like this. So let's first take a look at the alternative hands. So the one right out of the packaging is the standard fisted ones, of course, for the neutral or punching poses. So the first set of alternative hands, we have a pair of relaxed palms, or maybe you can use them for certain swimming poses or just a relaxed look. For the second set of alternative hands, we have these grappler ones, which I assume can be used for in-battle looks, but once again, it's mostly for the swimming poses, since he pretty much does live in the sea. And the fourth and final set of hands is the grappler ones to hold on to the weapons, which is the trident, of course, which I will do next. So here it is, his main weapon, the trident held in hand, which in my opinion is kind of a must for Aquaman on a display. So what you do is kind of detach the bottom half, slip it through the hand, and then you can get Aquaman into some many dynamic poses. You just got to take your time over it and get him into some really cool poses to have. And I guess you gotta have it. Without it, I think the display wouldn't look as good. That's just my opinion. So yeah, just take your time over this, and of course you can display it with both the hands to hold onto the trident, which I'm going to do now. And here it is, the classic pose of Aquaman. You can of course hold the trident in both the hands to give you one of the display ideas. And the next set of accessories are the water effects, which of course are essential for Aquaman. And this is what I like about Too Much Nations. They're starting to implement a lot more accessories. So for Aquaman, there are a total of 7 water effects. So the 4 on the left are to be attached onto the legs and arms. I believe the long ones are for the legs. And then this one is obviously self-explanatory for the trident. And then we have the biggest piece, which is for the body. So here are the water effects placed onto the arms and legs. And I'm not gonna lie, I must admit it took me a bit of time to get the legs on because it's kind of freestyle and it does kind of detach itself if it's not connected properly. Whereas the arms, it's a lot easier because there is actually a placement piece and you just connect it onto the arm guards. So this kind of gives it a better look, I guess, if you get it in the right pose. And then the other piece is the body water effects. And this just slips on very easily, and it can look very weird at some parts, so you just gotta get it in the right pose as well. So for the body water effects, I'm not a fan of because it kind of does look like a very basic piece, but I guess if you get it in the right pose it should work. And then for the trident, of course, we have the water effects for the top half and the bottom. You just change them up. And this is probably the better of all of them. I do like this. It does give it that extra kind of look. So yeah, I guess the water effects are nice and it's a nice bonus. But I'm not too sure on this body version. And I think the legs, they could have done them a lot better. Kind of have the placement piece kind of like the arms on the legs as well. That would have been perfect. And yeah, let's just try this on with the trident and see how it looks. And here is the trident held in hand with the water effects, and I think it definitely upgrades the display. Alright, now it's time to take a look at the final accessory, which is the alternative head sculpt. So the standard one is a very accurate look. I do like it. Unfortunately for Too Much Nations, they don't tend to give us these angry type of faces, which would have been a great addition, especially for Aquaman. But they have not done that. They've given us another piece of head sculpt instead, which I do like. It is the underwater effect, so it's very creative what they've done here with the flowy hair, which is kind of a classic look of the DCEU Aquaman. And once again, you do have to get him into the right pose, otherwise it could look a bit odd if he's just standing there. So maybe have him on a stand or something, and then add in the water effects. I do like this. So disappointing there is no angry face, but I think this as an alternative is pretty nice. And now let's test out the articulation of the Aquaman figure. So let's start off with the movement of the head sculpt. So for the hairstyle, since it is a long piece, it may be kind of difficult to move it side to side, but you can kind of do it because, as we know with the alternative head sculpt, there are 2 separate pieces for this hair. So turning it side to side is no problem, but it doesn't really do the full 360 spin. And then we can tilt it downwards and upwards like this. And it does kind of have a small rotation, but once again, due to the hairstyle, there's not much there. And then for the arms, they go side to side, no problems. And then there's nothing really to hinder it in terms of its armor, so it goes forwards, backwards, and then upwards. And then here is the joint backwards, which is pretty good, and there's good motion inwards as well. And then you can see the biceps, there is a rotation on the forearm as well as the lower half. And then we have the elbow bend, and obviously the hand movement as well as the hinge. And then for the body, so it's pretty smooth in terms of the top half, so it can rotate side to side, it can tilt left and right, very smooth as well. And then forwards crunch, backwards. And then we have the lower half, which also turns really well, so I do like this. And then we have the forwards crunch, and then the upwards one, which should be good for the swimming poses in the sea. And then we have this armor piece here, which actually does move side to side. And then we have the legs kicking forwards and backwards, and good rotation on the legs as well. Full knee bend all the way back, and then we have good rotation. And then obviously for the boots, not much movement side to side, but of course for the feet you can push them downwards, upwards, and kind of side to side as a toe hinge as well. So yeah, I do like the articulation. I think it's pretty smooth. Apart from the head sculpt, maybe everything else actually does work really well. And now it's time for the comparison. So let's first start off with the previous Aquaman figures from the first movie, which of course is by Medicom Mafex. So once again, next to Aquaman in the similar suit, and then of course we have Mera. And here it is next to some more Mafex with Zack Snyder's Justice League Cyborg as well as Bruce Wayne. Of course, Bruce was meant to be in the Aquaman sequel, but unfortunately his scene was cut. But this is a preview of what it could have looked like. And here is the battle of the muscles with the Mafex Zack Snyder's Justice League Superman as well as an SH Figuarts Black Adam. Next to some more SH Figuarts with the Justice League Batman and Wonder Woman. And here it is next to some other lines that do the DC characters, as we have the McFarlane Toys The Flash for Zack Snyder's Justice League, as well as the DC Collectibles Deathstroke for the CW series Arrow. And as you can see, the proportions are a lot taller. And here it is next to some other lines like the Marvel Legends Spider-Man and Jada Toys Ryu. So now for my final thoughts on the Aquaman SH Figuarts from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It is a nice addition to my DC collection as it's the first SH Figuarts Arthur Curry. Something to remember, something to represent the King of Atlantis in the DCEU. Although I prefer his Justice League suit, this one does pop a lot more as a display with those colours. The face sculpt is accurate. I do like the under the sea look with that wavy hair. Although I would have preferred if they added an angry face for Arthur Curry. Although I'm not complaining too much with these ones. The water effects are a great idea. I just wish they added the leg ones with the attachments, kind of like the arms, to make it a lot more easier to put on. Although I think overall it does upgrade the look for sure. And considering we have all these effects, they could have included a stand, although it's rare in the SH Figuarts line. So overall I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Kind of like the movie, it's a nice part of the DC collection. But I wouldn't say it's a must if you already have some of the Mafex versions. And I wouldn't mind if they added Mera or Black Manta into the line, although I don't have much hope since they don't do a huge line for their DC collection. And even though we do have the Flash arriving this month, this may well be one of the final DCEU SH Figuarts we are now getting. Stay tuned to my channel for the Mafex Aquaman review for the Zack Snyder's Justice League version, and in the meantime check out my other content, and if you're interested in buying this figure, of course there is a link in the description below. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.